Ethan had never really cared much about the holidays. Growing up in a quiet town outside Denver, his family treated December 25th as just another winter day. No tree, no gifts, no big family dinners. Now at 24, living in the city with his girlfriend Claire, the idea of actually celebrating Christmas felt both foreign and exciting. Claire was the opposite of Ethan in so many ways. She worked in tech, was confident, strikingly tall, and had that magnetic energy that seemed to pull everyone toward her. She had been the one to approach him at a mutual friend's party 2 years ago, and somehow their lives had clicked together ever since. Ethan admired her boldness. It balanced out his quiet, cautious nature. That year, Claire insisted, "Let's do Christmas properly. Tree, lights, gifts, the whole deal." Ethan, secretly thrilled, agreed. They bought a small pine tree from a street vendor, strung twinkling lights around their apartment, and wrapped up a few presents for each other. It all felt wholesome, warm, like stepping into a storybook life he had never lived before. On Christmas morning, the city outside was blanketed in frost, but their apartment was glowing with soft golden light. Ethan stumbled out of bed late, still in his pajama pants, only to find Claire already waiting by the tree. "Before we open gifts," she said with a teasing smile, "I have something important to tell you." Ethan raised an eyebrow, half joking. "You're not breaking up with me on Christmas, are you?" Claire laughed and shook her head. "No, silly. It's something different. I read this article about couples trying out new ways of connecting by swapping roles, exploring sides of themselves they never had the courage to. It made me think about us. About you." Ethan frowned. "Me? Yes, you." Her smile softened. "Just promise me you'll keep an open mind when you open your presents, okay? That's all I'm asking." A flutter of nervous curiosity rose in Ethan's chest. He nodded, though uncertainty tightened his throat. They exchanged a few light gifts first. Ethan had picked out a cozy cashmere scarf and a book Claire had been hinting at for weeks. She loved them. Then came his turn. The first box Claire handed him looked ordinary enough, wrapped in red paper with a silver ribbon. He tore it open and froze. Inside was a delicate bottle of moisturizer, a set of grooming tools, and something that looked suspiciously like a small box of hair removal strips. Ethan blinked. "Are you saying I don't take care of myself enough?" Claire giggled. "Just keep going." The second gift was a small, neatly packaged box of makeup, foundation, eyeliner, lipstick. Ethan's pulse quickened. The third was a pair of sleek black stockings. By the time he unwrapped the fourth soft ballet flats, in his exact size, his cheeks were burning. "Claire," Ethan started, his voice caught between protest and bewilderment. She leaned closer, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I know it's a lot. But trust me, I thought carefully about this. I want us to explore something together. You might be surprised what you find." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but then she pulled out a final package, larger, heavier. With hesitant hands, he tore it open to reveal a brand new Nintendo Switch. "If you go along with this, just for today, it's yours," Claire said softly. Ethan laughed nervously. "You're bribing me?" Maybe, she teased. "But also, I want to show you a different side of yourself. Something I think you've been curious about, even if you haven't admitted it." Her words hit deeper than Ethan expected. He couldn't explain why, but a flicker of curiosity stirred inside him. He thought about the long nights when he'd stared at his reflection, imagining, what if? He looked back at the stockings, the makeup, the flats, then at Claire, who seemed so sure, so supportive. Finally, he sighed, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're ridiculous, you know that? And you love me for it," Claire shot back with a grin. And so, hesitantly, Ethan nodded. "Fine. Just today." What Ethan didn't know was that this single choice, this small step into something new, was about to change his entire life. Ethan sat cross-legged on the couch, the pile of unusual gifts spread across the coffee table. The stockings looked impossibly delicate, the makeup kits gleamed with colors he didn't recognize, and the flats almost mocked him with how perfectly they'd fit. Claire was watching him intently, her chin propped on her hand. She didn't look mocking, though. If anything, she looked like she was holding her breath, waiting for him to say yes. Finally, she clapped her hands together. Okay, let's make this fun. You've agreed for today, right? Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, but I don't know the first thing about this stuff. That's the best part, Claire said warmly. You don't have to know. You just have to let me guide you. She stood up, tugging him gently by the hand toward their small bedroom. On the dresser sat the big oval mirror Ethan usually ignored. Today, it felt like a portal, a gateway he wasn't sure he wanted to walk through. Claire laid the items out like a stylist prepping for a runway show. We'll start simple. Stockings first. Ethan gave her a look. Claire, I'm going to look ridiculous. She tilted her head. Maybe. But ridiculous can also be freeing. Trust me. Hesitantly, he sat down and took the stockings in hand. The material was so smooth, sliding against his skin as he pulled them up his legs. To his shock, instead of feeling silly, there was a strange comfort in the snugness. A quiet thrill hummed through him. Claire's lips curved into a knowing smile. See? Not so bad. Don't push it, Ethan muttered, though the flush on his cheeks betrayed him. Next came a loose sweater dress Claire had tucked away, one she claimed she'd never worn but thought might fit him. She slipped it over his head, adjusting the sleeves so they didn't bunch awkwardly. The fabric brushed against the stockings, sending little sparks of awareness up his skin. When he caught sight of himself in the mirror, still clearly Ethan, but softened by the strange combination of clothes, his heart gave an odd, conflicted flutter. Claire stepped behind him, meeting his gaze in the reflection. You're braver than you think, Ethan. You just don't see it yet. He swallowed hard. Brave? I feel like I'm on a hidden camera show. She laughed gently. No cameras. Just you and me. And maybe a part of you that's been waiting a long time. Ethan wanted to argue, but he couldn't shake the curious, dizzy warmth blooming in his chest. Then Claire picked up the small makeup bag. Final touch for today. Only if you're ready. He froze. Makeup felt like the real line. Crossing it wasn't just playful, it meant stepping into something irreversible, even if only for a day. Claire seemed to sense his hesitation. She set the bag down and crouched in front of him. Listen, you're still you. Makeup doesn't erase that. But sometimes, it lets you see sides of yourself you didn't know existed. And maybe you'll like what you find. If you don't, we never do this again. Deal? Her voice was steady, her eyes full of a tenderness that cut through his fear. Ethan drew a shaky breath, then nodded once. Deal. Claire's smile widened, and with practiced hands, she began to work. A little foundation, some eyeliner, a brush of color at his lips. The process felt strange, ticklish, even, but there was something soothing about the way she guided him through it, murmuring encouragements as if she were painting a masterpiece. When she finally turned him back toward the mirror, Ethan's mouth fell open. The person staring back at him wasn't just Ethan in a sweater dress. There was softness in the face, a brightness in the eyes. A version of himself that felt possible. For the first time, Ethan whispered, almost to himself, I don't look half bad. Claire grinned. Correction. You look stunning. His laugh came out nervous, but there was no denying the flicker of pride in his chest. And then Claire said the words that would send a shiver down his spine. Ethan, I think it's time we tried giving this version of you a name. Ethan's heart pounded as Claire's words lingered in the air. I think it's time we tried giving this version of you a name. A name. It sounded so simple, yet the suggestion felt heavier than any gift under the tree. He glanced back at the mirror. The person staring at him wasn't a stranger, but also wasn't just Ethan anymore. The sweater dress, the stockings, the careful touch of makeup, all of it blurred the lines he had clung to his whole life. He swallowed hard. I don't know about that. Claire smiled gently, crouching down beside him. It doesn't have to be forever. Think of it like a character you get to play today. No rules, no judgment. Just a chance to step outside yourself. Ethan bit his lip. The logical part of him screamed this was absurd. But another part, the quieter, curious one, leaned toward the idea like a moth to a flame. What if I pick something stupid? He asked, his voice hushed. Then we laugh and pick another, Claire replied without hesitation. There's no wrong answer. Ethan stared at the reflection, trying to imagine this softer, gentler version of himself walking into a room with a different name. His mind offered a flood of possibilities, none of which felt right until one surfaced like it had been waiting in the shadows. "Lila," he whispered. Claire's face lit up, her smile radiant. "Lila. That's beautiful." The sound of it sent a strange shiver through Ethan, no, through Lila. Like the word unlocked a door deep inside him he hadn't realized was there. Claire brushed a strand of the blonde wig behind his ear. "Say it again." Out loud. He hesitated, then met her eyes in the mirror. "I'm Lila." It was shaky, awkward, but it was also real. And when Claire squeezed his hand, warmth spread through his chest in a way Ethan hadn't expected. Claire stood and twirled him gently so the dress shifted against his legs. "Well then, Lila, today's your first Christmas." Lila laughed nervously, covering his face with both hands. "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually doing this." "Believe it," Claire teased. "Because I have one more surprise." She reached into the closet and pulled out a small gift bag, one Ethan hadn't noticed earlier. Inside was a simple silver necklace with a tiny star pendant. Claire clasped it gently around his neck, stepping back to admire. "There," she said softly. "Now you're glowing." Ethan touched the pendant, staring at his reflection once more. The person staring back didn't feel like a costume anymore. There was something raw, something truer than he wanted to admit. And that terrified him almost as much as it thrilled him. Before he could say anything, Claire tilted her head playfully. "You know, Lila, I think it's time for your first test as the new you." His eyes widened. "Test?" Claire grinned. "Don't worry, it'll be fun. But I'm not telling you what it is yet." She winked, leaving him with his reflection and 1,000 racing thoughts. Claire disappeared into the bedroom closet, humming cheerfully like she was setting up a surprise party. Lila sat nervously on the edge of the bed, twisting the hem of the sweater dress between his fingers. His reflection in the dresser mirror felt like it was watching him, daring him not to back out. Finally, Claire emerged holding a small laundry basket stacked with folded clothes. She set it down in front of him with a mischievous grin. "All right, Lila," she said, crossing her arms. "Time for your first test." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "You're seriously giving me a pop quiz while I'm in a dress?" "Not a quiz," Claire corrected. "A challenge. Every Christmas deserves a tradition. Today, yours is helping me transform this apartment into a holiday wonderland." In full character. Lila blinked. "You mean decorating?" "That's it." "Not just decorating." Claire wagged a finger. "You'll do it while practicing being her. How she moves, how she talks, how she carries herself. This isn't just about clothes, it's about stepping into the role." Ethan's stomach flipped. It was one thing to wear stockings in private. Pretending to be someone else? That was terrifying. But Claire's eyes sparkled with encouragement, and a tiny voice inside whispered, "Don't run from this. Try." "Fine," he muttered. "But if I mess this up, you're not allowed to laugh." Claire grinned. I'd never laugh at Lila. Only with her. She handed him a box of ornaments and a roll of ribbon. At first, Ethan moved stiffly, trying not to think about how ridiculous he must look. But as he reached up to hang baubles, the dress swayed lightly against his legs, the stockings stretched comfortably, and the silver necklace brushed against his collarbone. Claire watched him closely. "Relax your shoulders. You're moving like a soldier at inspection." Ethan rolled his eyes, but tried again, loosening his movements. He placed an ornament, then another, slowly settling into a rhythm. Claire guided him with playful corrections, softer hands, grace in your step, don't stomp, glide. At one point, she burst into laughter when he over-exaggerated a twirl while hanging tinsel. Ethan flushed. "See? I knew you'd laugh." She shook her head, smiling. "I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because you're adorable." The word hit him like a spark in the chest. Adorable. No one had ever described him that way. By the time the tree was covered in gold and silver ribbons, the stockings hung neatly, and the lights twinkled across the living room, Ethan was breathing faster, not from the work, but from the strange, exhilarating freedom of moving differently. Claire stepped back to admire their work, then clapped her hands. Perfect. Test 1, passed. Ethan sank onto the couch, tugging at the hem of the sweater dress. I don't feel like I passed. I just feel weird. Claire sat beside him, taking his hand. Weird is just another word for new. And new isn't bad. Ethan glanced at the mirror across the room, catching sight of himself again, Lila, not Ethan. For a moment, it didn't feel like play. It felt like possibility. Then Claire leaned in, whispering in his ear. Tomorrow, we take it outside. Ethan froze, his heart leaping into his throat. Ethan froze when Claire whispered those words. Tomorrow, we take it outside. His mind flooded with panic. Outside meant neighbors. Strangers. People who wouldn't understand this was just an experiment. His heart thudded so loudly, he wondered if Claire could hear it. Outside, he echoed, voice cracking. Like, on the balcony? Claire smirked. Nope. I mean actually outside. Into the world. Ethan shook his head rapidly. Claire, no. That's insane. Someone will see me. I'll look like a joke. What if we run into someone we know? She squeezed his hand, her tone calm but firm. Breathe. I'm not talking about parading you through the whole city. Just a walk. Somewhere quiet. With me at your side the entire time. Ethan wanted to argue more, but the way she said it, with such certainty, stilled him. Claire wasn't reckless. She had a way of pushing him just far enough to grow without letting him drown. Still, he muttered, I don't think I can do it. Claire tilted her head. Then let's make a deal. Tomorrow morning, you try on something simple, just for me. If you feel brave enough, we step outside for 5 minutes. If not, we wait. No pressure. The compromise settled some of his nerves. He nodded reluctantly. That night, he tossed and turned in bed, staring at the ceiling while Claire slept peacefully beside him. His mind kept circling back to the mirror, the way Lila had looked at him. The way Claire had called him adorable. And, disturbingly, the way he hadn't hated it. When morning came, Claire was already awake, bustling around with a level of energy Ethan usually only saw before a big presentation at her job. She laid out an outfit on the bed, a pair of slim black leggings, an oversized cream sweater, and the same flats from yesterday. It's casual, she explained. Blend in casual. No one will give you a second glance. Ethan stared at the clothes. I don't know if I can blend in. Then let's find out, she said softly. Step by step, he dressed. The leggings clung snugly, the sweater draped loose and cozy. Claire adjusted his wig and added only the lightest touch of makeup, just enough to soften his features without feeling overdone. When he looked in the mirror this time, his breath caught. He didn't see a man in borrowed clothes. He saw someone who could exist. Someone who might even pass unnoticed on a quiet street. Claire stood behind him, her hands resting on his shoulders. You're ready, Lila. Ethan shook his head, whispering, I'm not, but his reflection betrayed him. Minutes later, they stood at the apartment door. Ethan's pulse raced so fast he thought his knees might give out. Claire held the doorknob but didn't turn it. Instead, she looked at him gently. You choose. Door stays shut, or we take one step out together. His hand trembled as it hovered near hers. He could still back out. Pretend yesterday never happened. But then he remembered the necklace around his neck. Lila. Taking a shaky breath, Ethan placed his hand over Claire's. One step. Claire smiled and turned the knob. As the door swung open, the cold December air brushed against his skin, and for the first time, Lila stepped into the world. The hallway stretched out before Ethan knew Lila like a runway of judgment. Every creak of the floorboards echoed louder than it should, and each step made his heart hammer against his ribs. Claire walked beside him, calm and steady, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Shoulders back, she whispered. Own your space. No one's looking for flaws but you. Ethan tried, but his body felt stiff. Every sound, an elevator ding, a distant door closing, made him flinch. What if a neighbor stepped out and saw him? But the hallway remained empty, and in moments they reached the lobby. Claire gave his hand a squeeze. Almost there. The glass doors ahead revealed a quiet winter morning. Snow dusted the sidewalks, and the street was nearly empty. Just one older man walking his dog across the way, and a bundled-up woman sipping coffee on a bench. Claire leaned close. 5 minutes. We walked to the corner and back. That's it. Lila took a deep breath and nodded. Together, they stepped outside. The cold air hit his cheeks, sharp and biting. The flats clicked softly against the pavement as they walked. At first, Ethan couldn't look anywhere but the ground, convinced every passerby was staring. But as seconds stretched into minutes, something strange happened.